So if for any reason, can you just keep us informed, because I always thought maybe that would be.
No. Yes, I can keep you informed, but I'm telling you now that you cannot do those projects they have to be done separately.
Well, maybe we space them out a little more then, if they're really using the same pavement, just.
They're not. So what we will have to do is relocate the meter vault for Oakland Avenue is currently in Oakland Avenue north of Edgewood. It's not in the intersection. It's north of the intersection. That will have to come out of the roadway and be placed outside of the roadway. So we will literally be moving it most likely into Hummel Park.
Great, as long as we're not touching the same pavement, if we're already opening the pavement, we could move it, that's all I wanted to know.
No.
Okay.
So I have a question about water meter replacement. Are we on track to be really ready for that next year?
We will be bringing the RFP to you on May 20th
Okay.
with the hope that you will approve it and we can release it, and then we will start talking about a more definitive schedule. But yes,
We're on track, okay. Okay, does anyone have any other questions about our general infrastructure projects? And then are there projects that are not on the list that we wanna talk about?
They're really, besides the Hubbard Park parking lot,
Yeah.
you're gonna have park facilities, is there any park facility on it? Just, no,
In the long range plan.
right.
Well, we're doing the Atwater stairs this year, right?
Yeah, that's true.
What is happening with the bluff that we recently did north of Hubbard? I mean, are we gonna have to do more bluff restoration or work there?
Is that at Capitol?
We're
we're
working
working on a
on
land management plan right now.
We're what?
A land management plan for the bluff, the river bluff, and that is scheduled to be completed prior to your, second long-range management plan discussion.
Okay. What is Parks Commission asking for or recommending anything?
They talked about a canoe, I mean, we had the canoe launch, kayak launch in there. At some point they may want, and it doesn't have, they had a real elaborate plan initially. Cheryl Nunn has indicated that other communities have put in much more basic landings.
Yeah, the more basic, the better.
More basic,
Having done two of them.
yeah, not a lot of, enough so it's stable that.
Sure.
So that might be something that at least get some placeholder to put in. It'd be nice to have that in that stretch of the river.
Where?
Below the river,
Right.
where the kind of trough is, they've created that,
circle.
the circle,
Yeah.
there's that grade down.
Mhm.
It'd be at the end of the grade there.
In addition, I'm sure we can't do it right now, but just keep in mind that parking meters, would that be something that goes along in the capital plan?
So that's something that's within the scope of
Right.
transportation and parking.
I wouldn't say this year, but I'm just saying in the future, would that fall under?
I think can't wait till we see what the outcome of that study is, cause I think it's gonna, hopefully it's gonna
really,
change,
impact.
Right.
the way we approach policy on it, and then I'm sure that's gonna have other impacts on how we budget. So that's not lost on anybody,
Okay.
but it's just, nobody has that crystal
Right.
ball.
I'd like to talk about solar installations
Mm.
and electric vehicle and other vehicle charging stations, and I think we could be doing more in terms of sustainability with our buildings and vehicles. And one thing that would be great, and think about the DPW yard, is ways to, like, could we have our own composting facility somewhere? I mean, I know we can't hardly do anything at our current yard, but if we were in a more modern yard,
Sure.
are there other things we could be doing? So,
Commercial
Yeah.
recycling, I don't know where that falls, but.
what?
There's so many opportunities to do those types of things.
Yeah.
At a different facility, yeah.
Can I update on solar? I'll keep it brief, but, I know sometimes you probably see my update or the monthly report, but I've been, for the last couple months, looking at the fire station in this building and the library with regards to solar. We've also had, in collaboration with the conservation committee, we've had the library building reviewed and this building reviewed. And then have also reached out to, We Energies regarding a pilot program that they're doing right now to actually place solar on rooftops and actually leased from you, so you don't get the power, but they put the infrastructure on your roof and then they get the benefit of the power and then just pay you a lease payment. So, number one, a lot of that's gonna depend, two of the highest drivers. Number one, the amount of roof space that you have. They, like roofs, flat roof's the best, but, also based on when your roof installation gets done, having a new roof that needs to go on. So, when talking to We Energies about their program, they're gonna structure it a lot that. I've asked for the architect to look at it for purposes of the fire station building, and the fire station building, a lot of roof lines. They have one section of flat roof that could be receptive to solar based upon how the structural analysis comes back, or potentially a green roof. So that will happen there, and both of these buildings, solar could be potential, but they weren't the highest generator for sustainability on the buildings. So right now, I know that the assistant DPW director is taking a look at this building. Electrical was one of the biggest drivers on that, from a fixture replacement. So, I've asked them to quote it to both ways, because actually replacing the fixtures, which is your highest bang, in the short and long term, is best bet by, changing those out. The best time to look at this building for solar would be when we do replace the roof, and I know we're looking for a schedule.
This roof is relatively.
That's what he
new.
said, it was done in the nineties,
No.
Late 90s?
No.
early.
I did this.
Well, I've
So
asked them
it
to
would-
kind of come up with those schedules so that we
this
can
roof is
plan for it.
Probably 10 years or less old.
Okay, so the library, the same way, but they're, when, I wanna say Chase or Chaz.
Chase.
Okay, so, also was there at the meeting where we kind of reviewed the two buildings. And I guess I'm sharing all of this, just so you know that it's reticent in my mind. Because a lot of times when I look at the three buildings, it's what can we get together, because we have relatively smaller rooftop components. With the program for We Energies though, I asked them, is there a way that we can look at our buildings and look at the school district buildings at the same time? Like, can we do a package? They don't allow you to do that because we're separate business entities, but it is one thing that I wanna pass along to Brian. I don't know what, if anything, is getting done with the scope of their roofs. But for some people, it is a less intimidating process if you can let's just, even a revenue payment, if the school district could get that, because they have larger roof systems than we do.
They were asked that at conservation if there was any solar involved in the 65 million, and I said no.
Well,
So I don't
I can
know.
definitely, provide them with we're on the wait list for the We Energies program. And he said,
What is the We Energies program? Is it capital funding?
No, it's a pilot program that they it's called Solar Now. And what they do is instead of us putting solar on our building for purposes of reducing our energy bill, they will look at your facility and say, are you a facility where we will come in and install it? And then we will lease your rooftop from you.
Oh, okay.
So here's a payment, it's, cause it can be done both ways. I don't know how he didn't give me an overly optimistic view of how we're gonna fare for that. But we are in queue for a review on it, just to run the calcs to see how we would fare.
I think we need to be looking a little longer term, like when the financial advisors were saying, we might not need so much parking in the future because
Right.
you'll call the self-driven car to come pick you up and take you where you need to go. And but I really see that we're going to be using a lot more electric vehicles that are solar, that are powered with a solar installation thing. So I don't know. In some ways, we don't want to go too early because then the technology will come later. But conservation did ask about space here that would for electric vehicles. So maybe we need to go back to conservation and ask for some specific capital things that we would like to do. And I agree too with I'd like to get some input from parks on some parks improvements.
So I should share with you that, when you look for capital things, conservation was a part of those studies that we did do on both facilities. They came out with specific recommendations. So we're gonna be coming back to you from a capital perspective to fund some of those next year as a first step. With regards to parks, just talking about Atwater, one of the things that I learned through our last session that we had together was that Parks at one point had talked about doing a new plan for Atwater, like taking out the pavers or something along the outlook portion. May need to get redone. Parks had said maybe it's not the most effective use, the way the pathways run through that area. So that is something that, there's a group who has been looking at Atwater. That Friends group that was out there before has kind of resolved, and we recently met with some people who are looking at, okay, what can we do with Atwater? So I had kind of shared that concept that, you know, well, the park could get redone this way to be put back in a better way if there was, you know, some additional funding that could come through to do that. But I think that's the only other park spatial planning, component that has been mentioned.
A little triangle, maybe some improvements in the triangle.
Yeah.
Nothing major,
Right.
but.
Okay.
What about IT?
Oh, so happy that you asked about that.
What's going on?
And Mark would like me to wrap up.
We did,
Well, yeah, that's the capital budget, that's,
Okay.
I mean, not to cut
oh,
anything
that's
off, but
not,
I'm
we're
just,
not gonna borrow.
It's not bond.
no, we would not borrow.
Right, but
I
coming
mean, we-
soon to a meeting near you.
Okay, because we
Thanks.
did, like with our last meeting, the cameras can't video the entire
Yeah,
meeting.
yeah, we're working on this.
Oh,
We're working at not
Yeah.
only
Yeah.
from the IT perspective, but from the agenda and the
And the
document
fleet?
management standpoint.
Fleet,
Oh,
Yeah, coming to you, July 1st.
boy.
All right,
Wait,
any
I'll
other questions?
resume. Bye.
So just to conclude, we did ask Leanne, she's probably regretting she
Oh,
came to this
God,
meeting,
why did I?
to look at some options for, moving the sewer up. And if you wanna maybe come talk over some ideas with Public Works Committee, I think that's a
Definitely.
good option. Okay.
Thank you.
And if not, if there are no other questions, yes. Mark?
So just to understand, my takeaway on this is that the board wants to defer the financial write-up until they make additional considerations on options for major infrastructure projects? Is
oh,
that
you mean
what
like
I'm
running the
hearing?
numbers for debt calculations, debt service calculations? Yes.
So we're going to come up with resolution in June.
Yeah.
Well, when, June 17th, right, is when we were.
Well, that's
I-
go ahead.
Well, I would propose that on June 3rd, and I would have to go back and look at the schedule for what's slated for June 3rd, but
2
June.
weeks away.
Right.
I know, really.
So the next meeting, we could just.
Well, that's-
No, it's not 2 weeks away.
He thought my eyesight was going bad.
What's
It's 3 weeks away, right?
2 weeks
Yeah.
away. I mean, is that sufficient time to,
To
Well,
redesign the whole.
I mean,
Here's,
it's what-
here's, just, my glitch, we'll call it a glitch. This concept and these engineering plans were designed by a former village engineer.
Oh,
I have a new village engineer who doesn't necessarily have the same, you know,
Knowledge base.
right? So I'm going to have to figure out how to download the very specific information that led to this from someone who's no longer under contract with us to someone who is, and so.
So how much more staff hours?
No, I mean,
It's just
the thing is,
exercise.
I don't know, you know, I can't guarantee I can do that in 3 weeks.
Yeah.
you probably can't even get the
We
engagement.
will work on it, but that's just the glitch, so that may take a little bit longer
Yeah.
than
I
if
mean,
it were just.
if we keep the segments the way they are, and we just move Oakland
Yeah.
out and sewer, I mean, the
Forward.
sequence of the sewer doesn't matter if it's 2 years or 6 years or 8
Right.
years.
Yeah.
That's a super easy option.
Yeah.
That's a
That's
super
what-
There
easy
may be
way.
others.
So
Yeah.
that's right.
But that, I'm telling you
I
that
heard-
because it might take me a little
I
while to
heard
get there.
basically 3 options. One was to keep the segments the way they are, just move the scheduling
Yeah,
around. Another one was if you had more staff, could we do more?
Mhm.
And then a third one was, could we, piecemeal Oakland and get more sewer done sooner? So those were the 3 I heard. Did anybody hear? Yeah.
I, off the top of my head, can think of another one, and actually, I was working on this before we even came in, but,
Oh, okay.
and that would be, we have 5 phased plans.
Yeah.
Can we make those, can we change that to 4 or to 3
Yeah.
and still do odd years and just make those programs slightly larger.
What are the 5-phased plans?
Well, the years you have
Yeah,
here,
yeah.
so 22,
Oh, okay.
You just-
28, or
Bunch
20,
of
so,
couple
you know,
of them.
take the 2 Oaklands out and you have,
Oh,
the
I
rest
see
of
what
the
the, okay,
phases.
so it's
so
1, 2,
can
3,
we
4.
compress those somewhat?
that would be-
So that would be another
Oh.
thing I would ask them to look at.
Okay, okay. Well, I guess we'll do the best we can, you know, if we can't ask for more than that. So we'll revisit this on June 3rd, which will be enough time for Mark to run his numbers for June 17th. No?
No, I have that resolution before I start running numbers.
Yeah.
Because I have to do water rate analysis, sewer rate analysis, all these other types of projections.
Well, just let us know the schedule.
Well, again, you know, I think the real imperative is to develop a plan that the board can live with and won't necessitate substantial changes in coming years unless the situation changes, right? And that's what we're always gonna do. But to run through all the analysis I need to do, I have to have fixed numbers to do that, so.
Well, okay, then working backwards, when do you need an answer from us?
Well, I guess the real question is, when do you really need to have the output?
What output?
Staff schedules this at this point in time to try to put the major infrastructure projects in a certain framework so that when we get into the full budget cycle, this has been resolved, or most resolved. The output of the long-range financial report is the analytical impact for the board to also reflect on and says,